Wait, you're a Bears fan and you're not subscribed to my channel? Before this video starts, make sure to 1. Hit the subscribe button below to catch all Bears content right here on this podcast. 2. Hit the bell notification because you, my friend, are a diehard Bears fan. And 3. Like this video and tell all the Bears fans you know about the channel. Alright, that's better. Now that you're actually subscribed to the channel, make sure to bear down and enjoy this video.
Now this is a podcast all about Bears. You either cheering for this team or just pulling your hair. I like to take a minute, just sit right back and tell you how I became the #1 Bears fan.
That boy is Benny Hunter.
Cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. You talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Before I get this episode started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you hit the big thumbs up to like this video. Please give me a follow on all my social media platforms by clicking the links below. And don't forget that you can listen to every episode of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and please do me a favor and rate and review this podcast. That'll be much appreciated. Like always, I just want to thank you guys so much for all the support. This podcast is officially on the road to 2,000 subscribers. That'll be the next milestone for the podcast, and I wouldn't be able to get to that point without all you guys. So thank you guys so much. So Bears fans, if you have not heard yet, there's a developing rumor coming out of Chicago that it may sound like Bears nose tackle Eddie Goldman future may be in doubt. Obviously, I talked about this in a past podcast saying we shouldn't stress out quite yet. Obviously, Eddie Goldman made headlines this offseason when he failed to report to mandatory minicamp, which head coach Matt Nagy made it very clear that it was an unexcused absence. But at the same time, Matt Nagy was very confident that Goldman, which he opted out last year, would be ready and return to training camp. There was actually a report shortly after Eddie Goldman did not show up to mandatory minicamp that he would in fact be there for training camp. So that relaxed not only my nerves, but probably a lot of Bears fans' nerves. Just because Eddie Goldman is a huge part to the Chicago Bears defense. But that may no longer be the case, as according to Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune, and I think you guys may need to take a seat for what I'm about to say. A league source told him Goldman could be weighing retirement. I am absolutely mind blown. When I heard this rumor, I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was just, okay, he's just not, maybe he's just a little bit out of shape. He's not ready to play football. But now it goes from this to this, one extreme to another. But Eddie Goldman could be weighing retirement. I am not quite sure why he would be weighing retirement. I don't want to say any false things here on the podcast, so I'm kind of clueless why he would be weighing retirement. But the fact of the matter is that Eddie Goldman could possibly not be a Chicago Bear as of this season, and that is just a massive rumor if it's true. We all know this already. Not getting Eddie Goldman back would be a huge, devastating loss. We all saw this last year. Eddie Goldman does all the dirty work. Yes, Blau Nichols did a pretty good job in replacing Eddie Goldman. But there's really no one on the Bears roster right now that can actually replace Eddie Goldman. Bears fans were very confident every time the Bears would give a big run, for example. They would be like, well, next year when we get Eddie Goldman back, that won't happen. Which is very true. When you have Eddie Goldman pushing up the middle, he takes 2 blockers. Then you have Akeem Hicks right by him. He takes 2 blockers. What does that do for the Chicago Bears defense? It opens up the pass rushing lanes for guys like, Khalil Mack. So, if this rumor is true, this would absolutely be a huge loss for the Chicago Bears defense. And we're already getting older as it is. So, this would definitely be a minor setback. Not a major one, but a minor setback they would definitely have to figure this out. Here's a fun stat that I thought I would throw to you guys today on the podcast. With both Goldman at nose tackle and Akeem Hicks at defensive end, the Bears allowed almost 40 yards less per game in rushing yardage than when they were without one of them over the last 2 years. Goldman also provides a pass rush push on running downs just like I just mentioned. Eddie Goldman is not a flashy player. We all know this. But he does the dirty work and he gets the job done. And that's exactly why the Bears extended Eddie Goldman to a 4-year, $42 million contract back in 2018. Because you need guys that do the dirty work. Not everyone on the team is a flashy player, but you do have these key guys that you don't think they're doing anything, but they're actually a big part of this team. I can't reiterate enough how big of a loss this would be if Eddie Goldman does in fact decide to retire. If Eddie Goldman does in fact decide to retire, he'll end a 5-year career at the age of only 27, which is extremely young. He has played only one full 16-game season back in 2018, but has been a high-level performer and was a Pro Bowl alternate back in 2019. So just stating the obvious, Eddie Goldman is a freaking beast. He's a monster. This rumor absolutely does suck. And I know in past podcasts, I said, Bears fans, don't stress out too much. And even this rumor, it's not a guaranteed thing. Rumors are just rumors. It's not a guaranteed thing that he actually does retire. But I guess we can start panicking a little bit more because we don't know what's going to happen. Nothing is confirmed. Goldman can still very well report to training camp on time and be ready for the season, which is the best case scenario. Obviously, with the worst case scenario being that he decides to retire and now we're out of a really good nose tackle. But here's the positive thing. We will know the answer to this question soon enough in about 3 weeks when players report for training camp. And I'm sure hoping, I am praying that Eddie Goldman does in fact show up and he's ready to go. And hopefully our defense just takes off from there. But like I said, nothing's guaranteed. Obviously, we could maybe start panicking a little bit more, but try to stay calm, Bears fans. Really, really try to stay calm. This may be too soon to think about something like this because we don't know if it's actually true or not if Eddie Goldman will retire. But we do have to start thinking. If Eddie Goldman does in fact retire, what will the Chicago Bears actually do? Because like I said, there's not really an easy way to replace a player like Eddie Goldman that is a really, really good nose tackle, basically that center beef of this very good Chicago Bears defense. So how will the Chicago Bears handle this? You can already see that even the Chicago Bears are starting to stress out a little bit. Once Eddie Goldman didn't show up to mandatory minicamp, they added extra defensive linemen and they signed Chiefs defensive lineman Mike Pennell. And Mike Pennell is a decent option, but he has been more of a defensive end rather than a nose tackle. He has the size to play nose tackle at 6'4", 330, but he has mostly been a rotation piece, a rotation guy, never really has been a consistent starter. So, like I said, it's going to be really hard to replace Eddie Goldman. Also, Bilal Nichols filled in at nose tackle for Eddie Goldman when he opted out last year. He did pretty well, but obviously we don't want Bilal Nichols at nose tackle. We really like Bilal Nichols at defensive end. That's his natural position. That's where I feel like he's better at. And if you have to move Nichols to nose tackle, then you're losing a really good quality player at defensive end. So, like I said, this is all worst case scenario stuff. I'm just throwing names out here for you guys. And these are, right now, all in-house names for us. Obviously, the Bears also just drafted a 7th-round pick in Kairos Tonga, a guy that I really like. But I don't think we can really expect a 7th-round pick to come in year one and make a huge impact. I could be wrong, but you don't want to put that type of pressure on a 7th-round pick like Tonga. I think eventually maybe he can progress to be a really good replacement for Eddie Goldman. But coming in year one and trying to fill Eddie Goldman's shoes and what Eddie Goldman brought to this Bears defense, that would be a lot to ask from Khyiris Tonga. So there's a lot of options here. And like I said, I'm not trying to panic, but we have to be realistic. There is a very good chance that this rumor is true and that Eddie Goldman may, in fact, retire and not come back and ever play football again, which I hope is not the case because he's a big part of this Chicago Bears defense and he's a big part of the Chicago Bears team as a whole. Obviously, he's only 27, so he's still that young piece on the defense, right? Our defense is only continuing to get older. So not only losing quality on the defense, but we're losing a guy that's still very young. So let me ask you guys this, Bears fans. In your opinion, how big of a loss would losing Eddie Goldman be for the Chicago Bears team? I gave you my opinion, but now I want to hear your opinion down below in the comment sections. And another thing I want to ask you guys, who would you want to see the Bears replace Eddie Goldman with if, in fact, Eddie Goldman decides to retire? But before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms. All you have to do is click the link down below in the descriptions to follow me on all my platforms. And make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. And before I forget, you can now listen to every episode of Keek on the Mic on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you rate and review this podcast. That'll be much appreciated. Once again, I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. This podcast is slowly starting to blow up. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, which would be the next big milestone for this podcast. And I just want to thank you guys because you guys are the reason why this podcast continues to grow. So let's make this the best Bears YouTube channel ever and keep these numbers rolling. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you. But other than that, I'll be back for an all new Bears video right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys.
Riding with Country Bear. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.